the life, I will, oh my gosh, strap in folks, because we're deep diving. Throughout these 7 seasons of Gilmore Girls, Lorelai Gilmore has had lots of dates, boyfriends, marriage proposals, and very questionable decisions along the way. So I am so excited, let's dive in. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Lizzie and I am so happy you're here today because we are ranking all of Lorelai's boyfriends that she has on the show Gilmore Girls. Lorelai Gilmore is probably my favorite character on Gilmore Girls. I just have such a soft spot for her in my heart. I just feel like we learned so much about her childhood and her upbringing. She was a single mom raising Rory and working, which I just cannot even fathom. And she just made it work. And I feel like she still has such an open heart and is so loving to people in her life. And I just admire her so much. Yes, she makes some questionable decisions regarding love, but I do think a lot of her ideology around relationships and things is coming from her upbringing. And it has carried over into her love life. And then obviously getting pregnant so young with Christopher has just affected her a lot throughout her life, and it's really sad. Her growth on the show regarding her love life is astounding, and I will get into that a little bit later. And I actually do mention it in my Gilmore Girls breakdown video. But a lot of these relationships end because of her inability to trust. But that's also because she's fostering feelings for Luke. So anyone who wasn't him, it wasn't gonna go well. I'm really excited to do this. We've done Rory's, so if you haven't seen that video, you can go watch it here. I will link it for you, and I will also link it down in the description. But Lorelai's love life is just as problematic throughout the show, so I'm very excited to dive into this today and rank all of the people that Lorelai dates on Gilmore Girls. Her love life on the show is very sad to me versus Rory's love life makes me very angry. So all of these men on this list I don't think are terrible. I think she makes fairly good decisions in who she dates. Spoiler warning, because always. I should honestly just put spoiler warning like on the banner of my YouTube channel because I don't know a video of mine that doesn't have spoilers. What I will preface with is that today we are only ranking people that Lorelai like steady dated and they were like in a relationship or got a little bit further than just like casual dating. And of those people, there are 5 men that Lorelai steady dates. So we are going to rank them. Coming in at number 5 is Jason Digger Stiles. Now, the first time that I watched Gilmore Girls all the way through, I actually did not hate Jason. I didn't think he was the worst of all her boyfriends. They worked well off each other in their banter, and honestly, he is the male Lorelai if Lorelai had become exactly like her parents. But rewatching the show now, I just finished the season that Jason is in, that's season 4, and man, watching it back, I was just like, ugh. I really don't like him. This is what I wrote. I wrote, he's the most particular man-child on the show. The episode where like she's gonna stay the night with him and he asked her to sleep in the guest room, I just think is hilarious. Like, he's so particular and high-strung and high maintenance. So I feel like they did get along because they had similar like antics and mannerisms, but I think because they are so similar and he lives a life exactly like her parents, it just like it was never gonna work. I also feel like they hardly spent time together, and this time that they were spending together, he was working. Like, he was a complete workaholic. There's the episode where he shows up in Stars Hollow and he's on the phone the entire episode. Like, he doesn't even spend time with Lorelai. I also don't think it's a good thing that she had to hide the relationship from her parents. Anytime you are like lying and deceiving people around you, it's not a good thing. Lying to them for so long, I think was just, it took its toll on the relationship. So I think like from the beginning, they were not set up for success. This is also like one of the most abrupt endings to one of her relationships. I won't say it's the most abrupt. I just felt like it was very abrupt. But it was also very necessary because he tells her he's gonna sue her dad. Which, yeah, I wouldn't stay with someone if they decided they were going to sue my family, so I think Lorelai made the right decision. I do think it's really sad because Jason's storyline apart from Lorelai, he was trying to do the right thing, coming to Richard and going into business with him, and then Richard totally blindsides him and stabs him in the back. I think that storyline is very sad. But then his countersue, I do understand, like in business, it's kind of his only option if he wanted to stay in Connecticut, or he could move and start over, but that's really difficult. So I understand why he was going to sue against Richard, but he had to understand, like, he was going to lose Lorelai making that decision. And I agree with Lorelai's decision to not stay with him because of that. But I do feel like it was kind of lazy writing to just like end their relationship on the show. But I'm okay with it because the lazy writing was leading into the relationship that had been building up since episode 1. We'll get to that later. But anyways, so I just feel like they had to write him off because she needed to progress with someone else on the show. But he just wasn't her best boyfriend. I just don't care for him. I don't think Lorelai has any like downright terrible boyfriends on the show. So I won't say he's terrible, but out of the list, he's definitely the worst. Coming in at number 4 is Alex Lesman. If you don't know who that is, that's okay. I had to look up his last name as well, but his name is Alex. We see him for all of 3 episodes? They go on a trip, an overnight trip together with Suki and Jackson, and then they just suddenly stop talking. Like, he was just completely written off the show. I heard one of my family members tell me that they think he was written off the show because him and Lorelai were almost too compatible, and it was like rivaling her connection to Luke. And I was like, that's a very interesting take, because I do think they were very compatible. He really understood her sense of humor and her antics and things, and just kind of let her be herself with him. And I think had they kept him on for a lot longer, he probably would have been a fan favorite. But honestly, he really was not here very long, and that's all I have to say. So I just couldn't rank him higher because I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I do know the 2 episodes that he was in, she was very much herself with him. That's all I have to say on him. All right, moving on to number 3. All right, these next 3, I have so much to say. Strap in, folks, because we're deep diving. Coming in at number 3 is Max Medina. I loved Max Medina. I really did. I thought he was a great first season boyfriend for Lorelai. He was the epitome of a gentleman and very kind, and I think his personality was just so sweet and endearing. Like, I just really liked him. But he is such like a grounded, traditional man, and that's not a bad thing. I just think Lorelai is a very untraditional woman. I think if there is a world where they could have gotten along very well and really like made it work. But there's an episode where after they're engaged, he's asking her, well, how do I parent Rory? What do I do if she comes home with a boy? And she's kind of like, it's Rory, you know, like she doesn't understand. But in his mind, he's like, I'm becoming a dad. And he's going about it a very traditional way. And that's just like not who Lorelai is. She's not a traditional parent or partner. So I think that sense, like, I don't think they would have lasted a lot longer than the time they were together, only because of that, because he had this very traditional worldview and Lorelai had this very untraditional worldview, and I just think they would have clashed too much. I mean, the man proposed while they were fighting, which drove me insane. Like, I was like, you don't get engaged because you're fighting and you can't get along. Like, that's the worst reason to get engaged. So I don't think he completely understood Lorelai and her antics and her personality. I think he does eventually come around, but it really took him a lot to learn who she was. And there's the whole episode of Dean kind of teaching him who the girls are, which again, little plug for Dean because he really understood them. But Dean is having to kind of coach Max on who the girls are and like the way that they are, and Max like just doesn't get it. Like, he doesn't understand. I think that they would have really butt heads had they stayed together much longer. I also think it was wildly inappropriate to date Rory's teacher. So, granted, I know she eventually would graduate Chilton and that wouldn't be a big deal, but I was like, wow, dating your daughter's teacher, it's kind of wild. I think it's wildly inappropriate. So, sorry Lorelai. He wasn't the worst pick though. I can understand why you fell for him, but again, coming back to the proposal of, he literally proposed to her while they were fighting, and I really didn't care for that. But then he does have the very sweet moment of sending her 1,000 yellow daisies to proclaim his love for her and tell her that he's all in on this relationship, and my heart melted. He wins a lot of brownie points for the 1,000 yellow daisies. Ultimately, I think he is a fantastic guy, and I think they had a very strong magnetism to each other. I think he was great for that time in her life. I just don't think he was Lorelai's guy. Coming in at number 2, I think this is gonna shock so many people, is Christopher. I have a soft spot for Christopher. Honestly, he is like the epitome of a returning character on the show. I would say he's a main character of the show. Obviously, him and Lorelai have so much history, like so much history. He is Rory's dad, and obviously they knew each other in high school, and I feel like in another universe where maybe that didn't happen, where maybe they both graduated high school and kind of ran away to college together, I could see them making it work. And it's very sad to me because there's a lot of moments on the show where they do try to make it work, and it just doesn't for a lot of external circumstances, except for season 7, and I will get there. I just feel like they had such a great connection and so much history. Christopher and Lorelai are just so drawn to each other. Like I said, they have such a magnetism to each other. They always come back to each other, and I feel like anytime something really bad happens or goes wrong in Lorelai's life, she ends up calling Christopher, which can be a very good thing and a very bad thing. Because sometimes it's not appropriate that she's calling Christopher, like at her bachelorette party. But sometimes I feel like she just uses Christopher as her safe place to like rebound on instead of being like fully invested in him. She just always wanted Christopher to choose her, and he never chose her, but I don't know if she also gave him the opportunity to choose her at the right times. They are so complicated. Like, as I'm sitting here talking this through, I'm like, I feel like I'm contradicting myself because it really can go both ways in their relationship. Like, they are just so complicated. They have so much history and there's so much to unpack there. One of the saddest episodes on the show is actually when Sherry is giving birth and Lorelai has to go to the hospital, but it's flashbacking between when she was giving birth to Rory and how Christopher wasn't there and wasn't involved. But then now he's like so involved and helping Sherry, and it's really, she's watching the experience she wanted for herself and never got, and it is heartbreaking. And I feel like that is kind of the definition of him and Lorelai's relationship, is that she wanted so much from him, and at the time, the place he was at in his life, he couldn't give that to her, and now he's older and he's in that place, but the damage has been done and he can't really undo that, and Lorelai can't really unfeel that hurt that she's had from him. Oh, it's so heartbreaking. I feel like Christopher just gets her though. Like, I feel like he really understands who she is and gives her the space she needs to be Lorelai, and he even joins in on her antics and her jokes and things sometimes. And I think that because Emily and Richard really like Christopher, that feels like safe for Lorelai. She doesn't want her parents' approval, but deep down she wants her parents' approval. So knowing that they like Christopher, I think she's constantly trying to bring herself back to him. I think a lot of Christopher and Lorelai's relationship comes down to both of their immaturities at different times in their life when they're together. Like I was saying, like Christopher really disappointed Lorelai when they were teenagers, and I don't know if she ever got over that hurt fully. When he comes back later in her life, I've seen a lot of online talk about how Christopher never came back for Rory to be her dad. He always came back for Lorelai. And I feel like that's because he was stuck in that like teenage mentality where like he was finally the person he needed to be for Lorelai, but he was so much older and he couldn't rewind the clock, and now he was like stuck there trying to make it right, but he never can quite make it right. Now finally in season 7, oh, this is like so hard for me to talk about, because after Luke and Lorelai have their giant falling out in season 7, I can't. Lorelai makes the gut-wrenching decision to go and call Christopher, and they end up sleeping together, and it ends up breaking up her and Luke. She ends up trying to date Christopher and making it work, and they get engaged. And you can tell once they get engaged, they're both a little uneasy. I think Lorelai's getting cold feet. She feels really guilty over like going back to Christopher. Anyways, on their trip in Paris, Christopher 100% manipulates her into getting married. Like 100%. It was his idea. He completely manipulated her and pressured her into this decision. She did not want to do it. She objected to the idea first because she wanted Rory present. Rory being present for her two parents getting married is huge. The fact that Christopher thought that they could do this on vacation without her present is like actually mind-boggling to me. And I think that goes back to him being so stuck in the mindset of him and Lorelai in high school. He doesn't understand that there are more people involved. You have a daughter, but he wasn't a part of Rory's upbringing, so he doesn't understand how important she is to the equation. I don't think he ever really views Rory as a daughter or treats her as such. Anyways, I think it's so heartbreaking that they get married and then they end up getting divorced, because I think it was going well, and it's not who I necessarily would have wanted her to end up with. So I am happy it happened, because I didn't want her to be with Christopher long term, but at the same time, I think it had really been leading up to this, and it's just sad that it ended in such a bad and bitter way. Oh, it really is, it's heartbreaking for me. There's so much more to unpack between Lorelai and Christopher, and I don't have time to like deep dive it in just this video, so maybe I will do another deep dive. But I would love to know your thoughts on their relationship in the comments below, so please leave your thoughts for me. What did I forget that is like so core to their relationship? And just let me know your thoughts. I would love to know. And coming in at number 1, you guessed it, Luke Danes. I am a Luke stan, y'all. I love Luke Danes so much. I just am obsessed with them, and I love their build-up from literally episode 1 to the season 4 finale. Love their build-up into their relationship. And the last couple episodes of season 4 are heartbreaking, but it is so fun to watch because him and Lorelai are finally flirting and dating, and they're so awkward now that they're finally like getting together, and it's just so good. And the scene where he's at the inn and Jason shows up, and then he comes to Lorelai and he's like, have I not made myself clear, like, my intentions of dating you? And she's like, yeah, totally. She doesn't understand. He just talked to Jason. His line of, will you just hold still? And then he kisses her. Oh, it is like one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. I remember watching it for the first time and I was like giddy. Like, I was giddy, giggling and laughing, and I just loved it. And then it's ruined 5 seconds later by Rory and Dean. But for a moment in time, it was perfect, and her and Luke were perfect. Once they start like really dating, it starts off good and I think it's going really well. But then the writers didn't want to break them up, so they just decided, let's just throw some problems at them. And it drives me nuts. But her and Luke just have undeniable chemistry. And I think that they are completely oil and water. They completely different people, but it works so well for them. He just gets her, like, in a way no one on the show gets her. Luke puts up this very like tough guy exterior, but he's actually the biggest softie and teddy bear on the inside. And when he takes her out on their kind of first official date to that diner, he pulls out the slip of paper that she wrote him the first time they met from his wallet, and he'd been carrying it for 8 years. And then he tells her, I am all in on this relationship. Oh, Luke Danes is a king. He is a 10 out of 10. And I think we all know, like, Luke loved Lorelai throughout the whole show. And to watch her date other people and for her to watch him date other people was both heartbreaking for both of them. But throughout it, they both supported each other and just kind of quietly knew that they would always come back to each other. And they were also always dropping hints to the other person of like, you should break up with them, or you should not go with them on a vacation or move in, or whatever the circumstance was. They were kind of always planting little seeds of doubt in each other's minds because they always wanted the other person to be available for them, and the timing never worked out. And then it finally worked out and they were finally together, and I think that they were a powerhouse couple. Now, the problems that show up when April comes into the picture, I also have seen a lot of online chat talking about how April is the problem and she ruined Luke and Lorelai's relationship, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that, because I think when you have a strong relationship, you can make anything work, and you should. With your partner, you want to make it through things like that. So April coming into the picture was not the problem. The problem was the way both Luke and Lorelai handled that situation. Luke not telling Lorelai for so long when they were engaged was a red flag. Being engaged to someone means you are getting married. You have the intent to get married. You are engaged. It's a big deal to be engaged, and I feel like by him not telling her really belittled their engagement and their relationship, and that is what Lorelai was feeling. And then for so long not letting her meet April, I think was just the wrong decision. But Luke does admit why that was the case. He really wanted April to like him, and he knows everyone loves Lorelai, and so He just wanted an opportunity to get to know his daughter without that pressure. But at the same time, that's where I think he wasn't taking the engagement as seriously as maybe Lorelai was. Being married, you do everything together. You are fully integrated in each other's lives, at least you should be. The fact that he wasn't like willing to make that integration, it was a red flag. The other thing is like they kept pushing off their engagement and their wedding date and for everybody else in their life, and they really weren't prioritizing each other. I can understand why it ended the first time. I mentioned earlier that Lorelai has a huge growth in character development when it comes to her love life throughout the show, and that is when her and Luke do break up and they have that huge fight and she thinks they're broken up. She calls Christopher and they end up sleeping together. Oh, it's just heartbreaking. Well, when Luke comes back to basically apologize and say, let's go get married right now, it's gonna make me cry. She has to tell him, I slept with Christopher. Season 1 Lorelai, I think, would have just ran away with Luke and hoped that he would have never found out, and she would tell him later once they were married and hope that he would just stay and let it sweep it under the rug, right? Like she just would have tried to hide it from him. Season 7 Lorelai, she told him because she loved him so much and she didn't try to hide that, and she's being very selfless in that moment. Don't mishear me, because going to sleep with Christopher was very selfish. The fact that she tells Luke, I think, showed a lot about Lorelai's character development and growth and how she was making herself more open to love. But it's so sad. It is so sad. And then the show ends with her and Luke kind of flirting a little bit, and you think they're gonna get back together. You can assume they're back together, but you don't actually get a payoff until we get into the A Year in the Life special. If you want my full reaction to A Year in the Life, I will put it here for you to watch. I didn't love it, but in A Year in the Life, obviously they're back together, living together, and then we get their marriage. So I did love that we got that payoff as fans of knowing that Luke and Lorelai ended up together and made it work eventually. All right, that is my ranking of Lorelai Gilmore's boyfriends on Gilmore Girls. Like I said, she has a lot of great men on this list. Like I don't think her decisions in dating were some of the worst on the show. I think that Lorelai just had trust issues and struggled, but I do think the writing of her relationships was very well done. But Luke is endgame, like for sure. We love Luke so much, and he will always just be her perfect match. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with my ranking. Who is your favorite boyfriend of Lorelai's? Is Jason her worst boyfriend? And there was so many things we didn't get to in this video, so if there's other relationships or episodes or characters that you want me to deep dive into, I will happily do that. So just let me know. I have some other Gilmore Girls content coming up. If there's others you want to see first, let me know in the comments. I would love to deliver that first. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so grateful for everyone who watches my videos and has subscribed to the channel. It really does mean so much to me, and I am so grateful. I see and like every single comment, so if you do comment on the video, I will try to respond to you and like your comment, and I've just been so grateful for everybody who's supported me. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you have not yet already, please subscribe to the channel. Come hang out with me. We have so many good videos coming up, and I am so excited for all of the content coming. And stay tuned for the next couple of weeks, because next week we have our ranking the Disney live action princes. We have our fan casting of the live action Tangled, and we have everything I watched in September 2025, which will include reviews of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Dancing with the Stars, Electric Bloom, a full deep dive into season 4 of Gilmore Girls, and more. So you're not going to want to miss it. So subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos, and I will see you next week. And I will also link right here my Gilmore Girls playlist, where you can see the deep dives into my reaction of watching Gilmore Girls for the first time, ranking Rory's love life, and more. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next week on the channel.